All right, hello guys and welcome to the dojo. Today we are going to have a workshop which is going to be about how to identify why you are losing in a game and how to act on it. Now, if you are watching this on YouTube, I hereby invite you to join me on Discord. I'm sharing my screen there as well, and the reaction time should be a lot faster. So if you have any questions, you can use the chat as well. But it's going to be more about the theory behind all this, how to identify what is and how to figure out what to do in your game. And because this is a workshop format, I really would love to have you on Discord to talk to me. Currently, as you can see on the screen, hopefully, yes, we are only 3 in the workshop join us room. So if you want to participate in the voice, then join me there. Okay, I'm going to go back to the guys here. So the stream should be live.
It is. It is.
All right. Is the sound okay?
Yep. Sounds great. Other than the part that we're not enough for you. That's about it. You know,
I always want more.
more.
More. Yeah, I know that you guys know the stuff, so teaching is always better with more on board.
This is true. This is true.
I am just going to wait a few more minutes, but we have 10 viewers, so welcome everyone on stream on YouTube. I'm really happy to see you here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Stuff.
So you can see that I have my Cree thingy.
Oh, look at this guy. He has a swag jacket now.
Yeah. The Cree hoodie.
The McCree hoodie.
Yeah.
Oh, it's nice. With the little
stuff.
Ooh, that is nice.
Look at me, I'm a fanboy.
He's embracing his McCree one trickness solidly right now.
Yes, I was a sad little boy last week when all the hit scans were banned except Ash.
I was semi-happy. Okay. And so, are you going to need any replay stuffs or?
Yeah, I prepared some videos, actually a single one from YouTube, but we are going to do some hands-on stuff. So if you have replay codes, that's all better.
It's been a while since I've been on, so I'll see if I even have any. I know Baggins will probably have more up-to-date ones than me.
Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and ping everyone on Discord.
Do it. So what it's there for is to ping.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, the Overwatch.
I'm having a hard time typing properly.
Hey man, it's okay. So am I. Man, I got 3 loot boxes? What? Oh man, I'm good with endorsements. Cool. Okay, let's just see what everybody's I have.
All right, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and start this. Frenzy Aspect said that they're going to join our Discord if they have the link, that is.
Looks like we're getting a few people.
Howdy.
Hello.
Oh, hello, what's going on?
Not much. I don't want to push.
Hello.
Hello. We are going to have a workshop on the how to identify why you are losing in a game topic. So welcome guys. If you want to participate, this is going to be a workshop like we have been doing in the last few months. It's going to be more like a lecture-like with a lot more information than like the previous one. But still, if you have any questions, you can pitch in, and also we are going to do some replay reviews as well. So if you have some codes that you want us to go through and look at some of the situations, then we can do that. Okay, yeah, the announcement had its effect. I'm really happy to see that we're getting more and more. So welcome, guys. Hopefully you see the screen properly. Let's see if everything is all right. Yeah, should be good. Okay, so let me start here, opening up my blackboard. I'm going to go ahead and draw on the screen. So do we see that?
Yes, sir, I see that.
Nice. Okay, so the topic is how to identify these kind of bad situations in the game, and this is not only for Overwatch, this is for any kind of competitive game that you might be playing, whether it is Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, Rainbow Six, anything. It's a general concept that I'm going to describe here, and this is why I said it's going to be a little bit more like a lecture in the beginning, because I want to make sure to establish the foundation for the understanding here, and then go into details, go into the Overwatch details in each and every topic. So I have a drawing board here. This is what I'm going to use. So if I don't look at the camera, pardon me, for most of the time.
Look at this guy getting fancy. Has a pen.
That's right. This is actually
Elevator.
Yeah. Been around for a long while, but I figured that I can use it. Okay, so if you have any questions, make sure to pitch in, and feel free to stop me at any time if you need more to know about something, or if you want me to go more in depth about something. But to start this off, I'm just going to go ahead and, so when we are talking about how to identify things in the game, and now it doesn't work for some reason. Okay, I was out of bounds. So it's about information that the game gives you, and then situational awareness. Hopefully it's readable. And I really didn't want to do this with a mouse because it would be ugly as hell.
It's better than Ton's handwriting.
Hey, you know what? Ain't nobody asked you, boy.
And then from this, it's decision making. And then follow up. So as you may or may not know, when I do these kinds of things, I do a lot of research before I get into either a video or a workshop. And this is something like the military uses for making decisions on the spot, or the first line responders use for emergency calls, or in situations where there is a natural disaster and they have to go out there and assess what's going on and make decisions. And I figured out that we as gamers are in a lot of kind of stressful situations. Of course, the quality of the situation is not the same as what these people deal with, but the general process applies. And information, then being aware of the situation, making the right decision or trying to make the optimal decision, and then following it up is the system that I feel like applies to every kind of competitive game. And it can be used really well to figure out why the situation is going badly and what can I do personally. And in a setting where I can trust my team to play with me, which is questionable in some situations in a competitive queue, but when you are playing in a team, in a scrim team or a puck team, you might be more able to rely on your teammates. So when you can rely on the teammates, you have more access to access more to more information from more sources generally, because more eyes see more. So that's the really basic thing that I want to talk about today. Is there anything that you guys want to ask right now before I get in? Not much for now, but feel free to.
I'm good.
Good. Okay. So information, the first and probably the most important thing. And this system works like this. So if you have access to information, that's fine. This is the first step. but you cannot really go to the next step unless you satisfy everything that is required, or at least part of what is required in the previous one. So if you don't have enough information, you can't really have a good situational awareness, because then you don't know what's going on around you. Information is just a basic understanding of the game. Knowing what's in the game, in-depth understanding of the heroes and the matchups. So what we are talking about here is the lexical knowledge. And this is why I said it's generally applicable to any kind of competitive game, because, for example, if you are playing a game like Counter-Strike, it's a game where aiming is one of the most important part of the game, but you still need to know about the economy, need to know about the weapons, need to know about the layouts of the maps, the objective, and a lot of stuff like that. When you go to the other side of the scale, where it's not as mechanically demanding, but more building more on the lexical knowledge, you have the mobile games, where there are tons of heroes, 100, 150 or 200 heroes, which each have their own kit, their own abilities, and their own matchups, builds, and stuff like that. So it leans more on learning the game, and the learning curve is usually steeper in those games. Dota is actually said to have a learning cliff, because you can kind of play around with the game, but to be really good with it, instead of having a simple curve that you can climb, it's like this. It goes up really steeply, and you have to learn a lot in these games. So this is just about the information that the game has itself. So the lexical knowledge that is available in wikis and in game helpers and anything like that. And then there is the information on the game UI. Anything that is being given to you as a player as feedback can be used for your own benefit, and should be used for your own benefit. And let's go with the Overwatch example here. I have a Rascal Genji video. Just going to use this as an example. Apart from the stream elements that we have here, Overwatch actually gives us a lot of information about what is going on the screen. And I want to wait for the first kill, probably. Okay. So what we can see on the screen is, and this is generally true for a lot of games, you can see your HP, how well you are doing, the ult charge, the different abilities that you have, and how many seconds you need to wait for them to come up, and the kill feed, and the objective, and a lot of other effects that are going on. So for example, who did you kill, how much damage did you do, healing effects around the screen, and a lot of other stuff. And this is just the UI of the game. This is the first layer of information that is given to you by the game that helps you to navigate around and tell you what's going on. And then the second layer is actually the 3D space of the game. So anything that you can see on the screen, health packs, walls, where your allies are, where the enemies are shooting from. These are all which I categorize as information in this system that you need to be able to understand, you need to be able to process, and need to be able to pay attention to. And then upon all those layers, at the top of the information part is the actual meta of the game. So anything that is being done, you need to understand what's going on. So you see, for example, a Rain, and because right now the meta is that Rain usually goes with a Zarya for protection, you can figure out something just from a portion of the information that you can actually see. So instead of relying on being able to see everything at one time, you can make these decisions, make these or gain these parts of informations that are hidden by default, because you know about the meta of the game, you know how the usual combinations are going, you know how the usual builds are going in a mobile game, for example. You might be able to figure out things that are hidden from you, and that's the top level of the information chain. So it was basically just the lexical knowledge and then the understanding of matchups and heroes, which is understanding, which basically builds on this lexical knowledge, then the UI and 3D space, and then the meta. Does this make sense so far? Asking the people
It does.
of Discord.
Does to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So this is, so far it's dry. I'm trying to include examples here with the game so it feels more hands-on, but to understand what I'm talking about, I'm trying to emphasize here is the, oops, what the heck? How did I do that? I don't want that. Come on.
Good job. You rotated. Rotated.
You
It's
pressed
rotated.
R. You did.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
there you go.
Nice.
You can
Thank
hold.
you.
There you go. Yep.
Look at this
Okay.
Photoshop genius.
I couldn't figure it out myself. Nice.
No, it's a pain in the butt half the time.
Okay. So yes, and then let's talk about how to train this, because that's the usual question. We can talk days about the information that you can get from games and the lexical knowledge and all that. You can really just go ahead and learn a lot about games from reading, from watching videos, from participating in workshops and tutorials and whatever, learning from your peers. But to train this, on the basic level, you need to play the game. You need to experience the game, because that is the fastest way to build this kind of experience. You are not going to be able to reach 100% coverage of the lexical knowledge just by playing, because you are not going to encounter those situations which are really niche and specific, but like it's the 80-20 rule, that you are going to be able to, with a little investment of time, you are going to be able to experience most of the situations that are happening in the game, and then you can start building upon that. But I don't have to tell you to play the game, you are probably doing it. Then the training, the next step is ingesting this knowledge that comes to you and actually understanding that this is present. Because when we are playing our games, we are just generally going into the game to grind because we love it, because we love the sensation of, I know, clicking heads, for example, for DPS, or making sure that people are alive because of us when we are playing supports in Overwatch. But these are good, of course, but when you are trying to step on the path of improvement, you really need to start figuring out how to train different aspects of the game to be able to actually improve. Because when you just go into a game and do the same thing again and again, even if you are able to learn small pieces in small pieces, because you are kind of reviewing yourself after every game or do something like that, it always helps if you start to dig deeper and start to try to understand what's in the depth of this. And when we are talking about information, it's ingesting the knowledge, so making sure that you are able to figure out that this is available to me. I can look at the kill feed and tell at any situation of the game how many of my teammates are dead and how many of the enemies are dead, and then I can make down the chain here. Using my situational awareness, I am going to be able to make good or at least optimal decisions. Now, getting back to how to train for ingesting information, one thing that I usually recommend for anybody who comes to me with a problem regarding autopilot or not being able to pay attention to the actual flow of the game and what is going on around them, or just tunneling to a single thing, I usually recommend them to have mental checks or a full mental checklist. We actually have a video about this. It was made like 2 years ago, and it goes about what's on the UI of the game and in what sequence should you check the UI to make sure that you are having all the information that is available to you. Now, these you shouldn't strive to do this 100%. Staying with the previous example, try to do it gradually. If you are not looking at a kill feed right now, or if you are not checking your ult charge, for example, or your cooldowns, or the ammo, for example, then have a goal to do that in the next few games, and it can help you tremendously. After a while, generally after 3 or 5 games, if you really set yourself to, I'm just going to look at the kill feed, and from the kill feed I should be able to draw back and not die in situations where otherwise I'm just trickling in. And if you have these small goals, if you build one milestone on another milestone, you should be able to improve the way how you process information from the game. Then one another thing is regarding the information, it's more about the actual lexical knowledge in the games, is the thing that I'm doing right now. So teaching, doing VOD reviews, doing personal teaching workshops, or just talking about the game in a chat or in a team environment. So when you teach, you have to process all the information that is available to you, and it helps to, like, regarding the lexical knowledge, if you would describe certain matchup, like how should you work as a hit scan, how can you counter a far mercy, like, that's easy. You just think it through really quickly, but if you have to explain it, it will take a lot more actually a lot more processing in your brain, which helps you to structure the information. And by structuring and really using and reusing the information that is available to you and molding it to your own image, if you're able to explain something in a way that the other party understands it well, that means that you truly understand the topic. And this is really true for anything that's related to information, that if you're able to teach someone how to be aware of the kill feed, how to pay attention not to reload all the time, for example, looking at the ammo that he has, or how to make sure that you go for the health packs, which is actually happening here, when you are low, instead of just dying because you are not paying attention to your health, it can all help. So that's the first part, that's the information part. The gist of it is that you kind of have to do this gradually. Just have to play the game, have to experience the game, and then build it layer upon layer, and make sure that you understand and ingest more and more of the game to use to your own benefit, because this is what's going to be used for our situational awareness. But I'm just going to go ahead and stop here, and it's question time. So do you have anything to ask or want me to explain a bit more, anything like that? Just looking at the YouTube chat here, no questions there.
No, I'm pretty good.
I'm good.
Anybody else in the room? Okay, don't be shy. It's a workshop, so you should, if you feel you don't understand anything, or if you want me to go in more detail, then feel free to ask. But if no question,
this isn't your comp game chat. Okay,
right.
we're not gonna like flame you for not knowing something.
That's right. So okay, no questions. Yeah, cool. So this is kind of straightforward, and I want to emphasize that all that I'm talking about, it's cool that you understand it. It's cool that you know how it should be done, but this is why I explained how to train this. If you want to improve, to be able to get more information out of the game, you should really try to train this thing, and at least check yourself, like going into a game. And we are going to have a little exercise about this. The thing that you can do is go into a VOD that you recorded, and let's just start a session of it, like a team fight, from the group phase to the cleanup phase, and make sure that you know everything what's going on the screen, paying really keen attention to the smallest details, that you understand why those are there. And let me give you an example that I had in my coaching career. So sticking with this video, let's see if it happens somewhere around here. Because there are a lot of things going on in the game, and it's really overwhelming if you just started the game. People get used to what the actual game gives them as feedback. And because there are a lot of things, some things get lost. And some players, even though they put in 100 hours to the game or in the game, sometimes they miss really basic stuff. And one experience that I had is when you are attacked, there are these red lines coming from the direction that you are being attacked from, and the length of these lines are actually the amount of damage that are being done to you. Kind of like the same that you do when you do damage, you get those on the crosshair. So there was a player who came to me, I think it was a gold player, and he was able to read the kill feed. He was able to actually tell what ults are going to be used, and this thing eluded his attention. Like, he was not aware that this is happening in the game. So if you want to do an exercise without going into more detail about what's happening on the screen, what you can do is load up a team fight and go into the video and check if you know and understand any kind of and every kind of feedback that's going on the screen. And if you don't, then feel free to ask around in the dojo Discord or anywhere else, or just look it up, because you can be surprised about things that you actually didn't know that you didn't know. So that's the in-game example. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is the situational awareness. I'm just going to go ahead and make a new layer. So situational awareness is okay, I promise I can write. Okay, so situational awareness is the perception of your environmental elements and events with respect to time and space, and the comprehension of their meaning, basically. So it's anything that you can observe. So the first part, information, building on that layer, you are observing what's going on with you and around you. So the environmental elements and events with respect to time and space. So when did it happen and where did it happen in regards to me or my team or to the objective, and being able to understand what they mean and then project the meaning and their status to the future. So this is basically situational awareness, and to in layman's terms, it's the ability to make sense of what is going on. So you could have a really nice understanding of all the different hero abilities, but if you don't know how to detect them in the game, so for example, you don't know if you don't know what kind of effect a Widowmaker shot makes, you just know that the Widowmaker is a hit scan hero and she is doing damage from a far range if you are just starting the game, but you never actually realize that there is a big red line on the screen, you are not going to be able to be aware of that thing being present in your game. So the levels of being aware of what is in the game in one possible direction is the bottom up, and I'm going to describe this as, at the very bottom, what is there is you. So being aware of yourself. which means that you should be aware of what is going on with you, with your hero, with your abilities, with your ult, with your HP, with any kind of resource that you have, and you in the game space. So where am I? Where am I standing? Where I am in regards to the 3D space. So am I on the high ground, for example? Am I on the low ground? And this is not taking the enemies or allies in account. It's only truly about you. Like you would just go into a custom game, and you should be able to be aware of what is going on with you, first of all. And this is just one possible direction of awareness, like from the bottom up. You can turn this around, of course, but being aware of yourself helps you to feel in control. And if you are able to tell what's going on with you, what's going on with your resources, what do you have available, you can make sense of a lot of things that are happening to you. Now, the next level is being aware of the environment. So anything that's, so you are at the core in this system. Anything that goes around you in your immediate environment, like what I talked about. Am I on the high ground? Am I on the low ground? Am I behind a wall? Is a health pack close to me, for example? So it needs the information that you have from the map knowledge, that you can tell that you are in a safe position, or if you are in an exposed position, or you have access to a health pack, or you can quickly hide. Being aware of your environment helps you to then, next up in the system, to make good decisions about where you should be. Again, we have a video about the 2-question system. Am I safe? And am I able to do my job? And that is truly just about being aware yourself, the environment, and the next step, enemies. So the next step is being aware of your enemies. And the enemies are in front of allies here in this system. They can be changed, like the order can be changed, but enemies are more important because if you are not aware of where the enemies are, you are going to die, and you are going to spend a lot of time not playing the game, not participating in a game, and not having an impact. So making sure that you're aware of the enemies, and it's not just about seeing them, it's also using the other sense that we have, the audio, to tell where the enemies are, and also what I talked about in the beginning, the meta, because from one information you can deduct what is happening just because you know the flow of the game, you know the meta. So knowing the enemies allows you to be aware of what's happening right now. So for example, the enemies are on Temple of Anubis. They can go this way, they can go this way, or they can go this way if this is the gate in the beginning. The attackers start here. Being able to tell where the enemies are is fine, and you probably can do that, holding the high ground here, for example. But then being aware of where they can move towards and what kind of comp they have, you can kind of predict what's going to happen. Because if you see a monkey and a diva, for example, pushing up the stairs right here, you can tell that they are probably going to dive you. And before you see all 6 of the enemy team, you can start making decisions just because you use your situational awareness. And this is the strength of it. So let me just delete that. So being aware of the enemies, and then being aware of your allies, because you can rely on your allies. You can make sure that you are able to hide behind them, get support from them, and so on and so on. Use the ults together. And again, being aware of the high level game meta is the top of it. And you can use this system in any direction. The gist of it is, if you are able to be aware of yourself, the environment, the enemies, the allies, and the high-level game meta, you can build this, again, layer by layer, and then you can start using all the information that is available to you, that you have been working on, you have been playing the game, learning the game, making sure that you know what you are doing, to start deducing what's going on. And instead of just grinding the game blindly and being present as a passive entity, you can start being active in the game by understanding that this is all stuff that I can use for my own benefit. So that's situational awareness. And that's how you basically use it. Now, there's going to be the how to train part. Before I go into that, any questions? Let me check the YouTube chat as well.
No questions, but you blew my mind with the red line things. I knew they were there. Did not realize what they were for.
The red lines?
The red lines around the crosshair when you're shot.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So
grind all the way to diamond and don't even know what those things are for.
How many hours do you have in the game?
I'd say safe to say over 200 hours.
Okay. Yeah. So, as I said, a lot of stuff is going on in this game. Overwatch is, I can safely say that currently, just looking at the game UI, it's the most complex game in regards of how much feedback do you get from the game. So yeah, it's hard to figure out everything and anything or everything at the same time. Okay, so cool. No questions? Feel free.
You say Overwatch is the most complex game. Have you ever played Star Wars Battlefront 2?
Not in terms of the gameplay. I mean the UI. I haven't played Battlefront. I saw videos of it.
I mean, to be fair, Battlefront 2,
It's complex.
it is, but not to the level of Overwatch, because you with Battlefront 2, you can still kind of carry, and as long as you either have Anakin Skywalker or Luke Skywalker or any of the Skywalkers, you win games. Like there's that's your strat. Grind up to get the hero.
Ask that question, except with Dota.
You mentioned Dota earlier.
Yes.
Zid Dota.
I only just got here. I'm late.
Aren't you the one who suggested this?
Yeah, which is the funny part.
Dota.
So Dota is really complex in terms of understanding just the static things that are there, and this is the same for League of Legends, because a lot of combinations, a lot of possible matchups and stuff like that. But in terms of what the game gives you, what you just really need to pay attention at the given time, compared that to Overwatch, I think Overwatch, just looking at the UI, the 2D UI, Overwatch gives you 150 tiny details in forms of crosshairs when you are getting killed, that kinds of damage ticks around the crosshair when you're doing damage, and so on and so on, and the different possible variations of these kinds of informations. Whereas in Dota, for example, yes, you get feedback from the game, but I think it's like 20 to 40 things that you can have as feedback from the game UI. So this is why I'm fascinated with Overwatch, because it has a different kind of complexity compared to other games, and this is why I feel like the game that we are playing is just really great. Okay, being the fanboy again. Cool. Any other questions regarding awareness? If not, I'm just going to go ahead and give you the how to train example. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm doing a lot of research for these topics just to make sure that I'm not talking trash. And what I discovered is there is a training for situational awareness in the military and for scouts as well, which is called, and actually Wikipedia has it that they do this for kindergarteners as well, which is called Kim's Game. And Kim's game is basically, the task is to observe something for a given time, and then you should be able to recall what is happening there or what is being present. So in the military, for example, what they do is they put the soldiers to an overview of a terrain with military resources, like a good view on the barracks or military establishment of a training facility. And the soldiers then can observe these said things for 10 minutes, and then they have to recall every tiny detail to the last thing that they can. So whether they saw any kind of different coloring, so they can identify an officer, for example, how many vehicles they saw, how many guns they saw, anything like that. So the game, this Kim's game, can be used for a game setting as well. And what they do here in a military setting is there's a part where the soldiers need to observe, and then they activate them. They start to recreate a kind of situation, what you can expect to happen when you are in a combat situation. So what they do is they do a lot of heavy body weight exercises to start the blood flow and to like imitate a stressful situation, and then start listing the things that the soldiers could observe. And what we can use from this is the exercise I figured out that resonates well with this is to go into one of your replays or VOD reviews and find a team fight that you lost and set it to the regroup phase before you even see the enemies. And then from the group up phase of the team fight, go to the end phase. So either you lost it or you were cleaned up, anything like that, and just try to observe what is happening. And this is, again, not just the information. This is now about the situation and being aware what is happening. So an example would be with this video I have here. And I have the timestamp somewhere around 10, I think. Okay, so the thing, what you need to do, and let's do this together right now, everybody for themselves, just look at what is happening on the screen and ignore the webcam and the chat. Just look at the game and try to tell what's going on. Like, pay attention to, open your mind and pay attention to every kind of detail and anything that I have talked about. So aware of self, aware of the environment, awareness of the enemies, the teammates, and high level things. And I'm just going to do this for a few seconds, stop it, and really want you to tell me examples of what you can deduce from that. Let me get back here. So I'm just going to run this for 5 seconds, and then we can start listing things that we have seen and that we can deduce from the situation. Okay, that's it. So activate your microphones and you can feel free to list things that you have seen in this small part of the game and anything that you can deduce.
I'm seeing a pretty standard hold on the choke. And I'm not seeing... I was seeing that the Rhino's set up well. We have our healers that are hanging out there in the back. I'm assuming that's our third healer on the stairs back there. That's right in front of Brig, or I guess behind Brig. Yeah, where your mouse was at. I'm seeing our tanks up front. So the defending team looks to be in a solid position. The Genji's doing Genji things because he's trying to flank. Just from this screen cap. The second bit I didn't catch a lot. But our team looks pretty standard. Nothing special. Good positions.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything?
I don't know if it's usable, but you know that Ryan just uses Fire Strike, so he doesn't have that right now in terms of cooldowns.
That's right.
The enemy team or the enemy Ryan is pushing up against the Ryan that's the defending Ryan that's in the choke, and most of his team is behind him. I saw the Ana healing him, and most of the team was with him.
Anything
Brig
that you...
Brig is strangely far away from the choke. She's just kind of somewhere in the middle ground.
Oh, I missed that. That's true. Forgot
the
that
Brig
Brig
should be up
doesn't want to
front.
be up behind for a sec.
Okay. Try to use these to predict what is going to happen, or use this to your own advantage. Like, you are the Genji right now. What can you deduce from these things that you can see? So let's talk about the Brig, for example.
Our team's losing a lot of healing.
I'd say it's the first team fight. I observed the time, and so she doesn't know if her Ana is gonna be Dolven. Is that the right word? I don't know. So it might be the right decision to stay there.
Yeah, the Brig's staying within distance. Yeah, because she's still able to send out
from back and front.
Yeah. She can still throw out armor packs to the tanks if need be, and then also come back and support the Ana if need be. So it's a weird position, but it makes sense at the same time because it is a first fight, and you have no idea what's going on.
And she's
Maybe
got some
not
natural
all
cover
out
that
in the
corner.
middle, but maybe to the corner would be better for her. But the general area is not bad.
Okay. Anything else?
I guess when I watched this Genji flank, I wasn't sure what his purpose was, like other than just to go back there. I wondered, like, did he have in mind, was he going to go after a certain character or
Kind of a thought I had. I thought he was just feeding.
yeah?
Also, he doesn't know what their DPS are. He didn't actually like see them on his screen. So because he was looking at the healers, he could have easily had something like a McCree stunned and died because he wasn't looking in the right direction and he didn't get out that fast.
That's a possibility as well, yes. Okay.
Rascal's also not providing any scouting for their team. He doesn't know what's happening on the other side, and he's the only one that can really provide enough information for their team to understand what's coming through.
Very important, yes. And we are diving more into what we can observe here. That was a really good one.
Also, I think the Tracer follows Rascal into the dive. I'm not sure, though, because we can't see it.
Yeah, the Tracer was on top with him.
Did Tracer die at the end there? Because I know Genji got out barely. What happened with Tracer?
Not even barely. He burns a cooldown to go into the backline, get 2 pokes, and then just like walk out.
I think that was...
Well, I'm gonna call it barely because he used all of his cooldowns for that.
He burned like the most important things he had to engage in order to just scout.
I think it was like a Widowmaker or Hanzo or something, but like that's exactly what I was saying before. He doesn't know who their DPS are, and he doesn't know where they are either. So he almost died there to their DPS because he didn't know he couldn't deflect because he doesn't know where they are, and then he almost died.
I couldn't see much, but I swore I saw a fire strike or something big, and then half his health got deleted from the right side.
I think he just got smacked by an arrow or something. That'll also take half your health.
Yeah, there was some kind of big damage from an unexpected... I think it was the Hanzo on top, maybe.
That could have been in a storm arrow, maybe.
Okay.
No, just a regular arrow.
Yes, cool. Another thing that I want to point out is from this beam you can tell that Zarya is still having a low charge, that the Zarya is around here, even if you don't see her. So these are the things that you can figure out from the game knowledge. And this is why I feel like the system that I was describing here is really valuable, because if you start thinking about the levels, if you start identifying the different things that you can see and use for your own advantage, again, you can figure out things that are actually not visible on the screen. So, cool. And you can see how hard this is. Like, this is why I was saying it's really complex, because it was, what, 10 seconds or less, and we have been talking about it for 5 minutes. A lot of stuff is happening. And it's really overwhelming if you would just want to pay attention to everything. So what our mind does is try to focus us to the single most important goal that we have in our mind. And it would be really fatiguing to pay attention to everything at once. And usually the benefits of paying attention to everything at once is not the same as focusing on one most important thing and then the other things around it that we deem important. So we shouldn't fall into the mistake of trying to ingest and digest all the information that is available at once, but we should be able to use the information to feed our situational awareness. Okay. Yep. Okay. So that was the training exercise, and to recap about this section, situational awareness is the ability to perceive what is going on with you and around you, both in time and space, and to make future predictions. And all that we have talked about is in the present. And because I see the Zarya there in the gate, because I don't yet have information about the enemy DPS right in this situation that we have frozen here on the screen, because I lack information, probably the best decision, the safest decision, is to be passive for the time being, because you can see that he goes in and he barely escapes. And this might not be, yeah, there was a huge shot, like 5 HP, could have died from random damage. So we are feeding all the information to our situational awareness to be able to make optimal decisions. And that's going to be the next step, the next layer. Unless you have any questions or want me or us to discuss anything more in depth.
Would it have been reasonable for him to go to the top of that window, kind of peek out, maybe do some poke damage and just scout rather than drop down and into the fray?
Right here?
Yeah, like if he had stopped there, kind of looked, thrown some shuriken or something, and then come back and...
Okay, someone tell me what's the use of this window with Genji here?
To scout?
Yes?
That's also your easy to get in and out of the back line.
I'd be worried about staying there because if they have a sniper, it's the easiest headshot on the planet. You're like framed in the perfect little
but
at this point,
he also has deflect.
He doesn't have
That's
information
true.
on their DPS.
If he sees it coming.
The team comp.
So if he has a fast enough reaction time, like he could look around, and if he sees like, or he could just like deflect preemptively to make sure he doesn't die guaranteed. But you could scout that.
Any sniper already has their crosshair on that.
Well, he could also go to the, like, even above that, to the above window, like the very, very top,
and
do the same thing.
There.
So what's the purpose of being here? We are talking about what could have been done or what could have been around him. What's the actual purpose? Just to answer the question.
To prevent a flanker from flanking.
Yeah, can be one. We also mentioned scouting. Anything else?
Diversion.
That's right. Diversion, really important. This here is a good opportunity to create some kind of crossfire. Even if it draws just a small attention, the tanks might be able to capitalize on it. Okay? And yeah, anything that you mentioned, those are true. The enemy sniper can lay in waiting to give us a headshot and stuff like that. And it might be better to go to the top here if you have the time. But when you are playing in a situation like this, if you stay back, that's really passive. You are safe, but you are not doing anything as a DPS. So you start looking for opportunities, and yeah, you can go in to the enemy team right there in the middle and start doing damage, which is really aggressive, and probably you are going to die if you are not lucky enough. But you can start creating a diversion, doing chip damage to the enemy team, start farming the ult instead of just laying in wait and being passive. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, nice. Anybody else?
Why is he feeding so much?
Okay, that's an interesting one. He is
It's April Fool's.
Yeah, he's good.
Yes, he is confident. So if you, for
I
example,
know.
if you see the real Kenzo, he is doing mad things. Like, he is frontline Widowmaker, but he is so confident in his ability to land all the headshots, and generally he does, that he can pull that off. If I would try that, I would die immediately. I'm still, like, I'm playing a lot of Widow, but I'm not that confident in my ability to just go in the front line and roll the enemy team. These guys are on a different level. So yeah, we have, like, I don't know, 5,000 hours in Overwatch, and probably around 20,000 in different competitive games altogether. This guy probably beats me by a lot. So confident, and they, like, even if they make a big mistake, they can rely on the team, because this is top 500 here. So probably the team can kind of mitigate the damage that is being done by a bad mistake. It's generally not recommended to try to go ahead and do what they do, because we don't have the skills to do that. Okay, anybody else?
So would you say to help strengthen your like awareness of what's going on in a situation, is it good to do this type of exercise where you like play for 10 seconds, record what you saw, then play back and see what you missed?
Mm-hmm.
Or okay, and so this would be part of like your VOD review process post a game?
This is a really specialized exercise. So I wouldn't do this for every VOD review, because it takes a lot out of you if you do this for a longer time. You have to pay attention to a lot of things, and generally when you are doing a VOD review, the ideal thing is that you have some kind of goal, and then you are validating those goals and turning the things around, making sure that you understand what are the causes for that thing that you are working on, and just generally understanding what's going on. This is really specific. This Kim's game adaptation for our purposes is really just for making sure that you are getting better in the situational awareness part of your understanding of the game. It's akin to when you go into a training exercise and you do flicks for 10 minutes. It should be handled like that. You shouldn't do that every day, not for a longer time, at least.
So how often do you think one should do this kind of situational exercise then?
This is being a foundational thing. I would really do this spaced out. So like once a week maybe, but do it generally. Like if you, of course, it can be used as a painkiller. So if you feel like you lack situational awareness, you don't know what the heck is going on, and you get killed from angles that you don't understand who was there, this is something that you want to do more actively, even daily, or in your VOD reviews. In other situations, when you are doing this as a general maintenance, that's more like, instead of being a painkiller, it's more like a vitamin, and you should do it like how you take vitamins, preemptively, just to make sure that everything is all right and you still have what it takes.
Okay. Yeah, it does. I was just wanting to check and see how often somebody would have to kind of train their brains to do this, because
yeah,
it is a lot of intense thunking.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So you shouldn't overdo it, because it can really wear you down. Any other questions? No? Okay. So yeah, the training is to, again, play a team fight that you lost from the beginning to the end, and try to remember as much as you can, and recall and make predictions if you can. All right, let's go to the next part, which is now the decision making. So we are able to get all the information, not all, most of the information that is important for us from the game. And then we are able to, using our situational awareness, we are able to tell what is going on, and we are able to make good predictions about what's going to happen to us and to the team. And now we go to the next topic, and this is making decisions. Making decisions. Okay, so making decisions. It's about making the optimal decision that makes sense in that situation, because we talked about the thing that you can't always see what's going on to the fullest. Sometimes you lack information. You should be able to figure out what kind of decision you can make that makes your actions worthwhile. Because when we are able to use all the information, then we can go into the... So decision making is basically the ability to assess all the available information, then apply our situational awareness to predict what's going to happen and what we can do, and then make a plan. And this is the part where it starts to be about what I can do as a player in the game. And as I talked about in the beginning, it's either about you, like what you can do as a single entity in a team of 6, and what you can do to help the team perform better. So when we are talking about decision making, it's kind of like the term that they use is the critical situational decision making, again used in high stress situations where decisions need to be made on the spot, like first responders, firefighters, and so on. So what you really want to do here, and this is the I think the first and foremost basic principle, is that when you have made a decision that you want to do something, you should follow it up, you should follow it through, and you shouldn't stop and rethink when you are actually in the motion, in the next step, which is following it up. So formulating a decision is as easy as, in staying with the previous example, you go to the window, you see the enemies, and you decide that you want to dive in for some reason. Now, decision making in itself is not something that I really want to explain, because you are just building on the previous parts of the system and then formulate a plan. The plan itself is more interesting. It should be really precise and it should be doable. If you are in any kind of business setting, there are the SMART goals there, which are being used to formulate goals, which is, I think it's short. This is actionable, meaningful. I think M is meaningful. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure about the last two. Let me check. We have been using this system for so long that I don't have the basics anymore regarding the SMART goals. Okay, so measurable, not meaningful. Yeah, so short, measurable, achievable. Yeah, I messed it up. Sorry about that. So the goal should be short and simple and significant. So these can have different ones, but this is basically short. I don't want to use that. The goal being short makes us able to put it in a pipeline in our mind. Again, we are paying attention to a lot of things that are happening in the game, and we don't want to overwhelm ourselves. We don't want to start planning ahead for 100 steps like you do in a Go game. You just want to have a try to predict what is going to happen and start to make a pipeline. I want to move out of the window. I want to start attacking the Ana, and when I get hit, I want to dash back to safety to my team and activate deflect. And this is a sequence of these short goals that I'm trying to achieve. So it's measurable and fit, which is something that you can actually do. So something that you can achieve, which is the next one. Achieve relevant in the situation. So you shouldn't start making goals for the second point when you are in the choke in the first team fight, and it's time bound. So you are not only making a decision about, again, not in a long time frame, but in a short time span. So these are short, these are stuff that you can achieve, stuff that you can double check if you did this well. The measurable part is important because when you make mistakes, those are the parts which you can compare with a good decision. Like, I can usually remember when I'm doing a vote review what I was thinking, kinda, when I went to the window. And this is generally true for everyone I coach, that they say that, okay, I was thinking that I can go out and do free damage because they were all looking at the door. So I could have killed the Ana, but now that I see that I didn't have full information of the enemy team, it might have been a bad decision. So this is measurable because I can recall what I was thinking, what the goal was with that decision. Okay, so the gist of it is that they should be short, they should be things that you can actually do. You have the physical and the mental ability to achieve the follow-up, to do the follow-up on these decisions. And that's basically what's behind the decisions. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about how to train the decision making, because that's another interesting part. But before that, now it's time to ask your questions if you have them.
I don't know, you might be going into it, but I'm in the chat right now talking with Destro Gamer about how would you know which playstyle gives you an advantage in certain situations in solo queue. I don't know if we're about ready to go over that or not.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh, looking at the chat.
Yeah. He also asked about playing on 180 ping.
Yeah, 180 ping makes it really hard for you to actually do meaningful stuff, unless you learn that, because we can see that pro players who have a lot of experience playing in a high ping environment, they start integrating the delay in their games, but it's hard. It's generally hard. So the question.
Well, I play on 120 ping usually, but it sometimes goes up to 160 when I'm playing on. I think it's West Coast. I'm in EU, so and I think it's doable.
That's a long ways.
Honestly, I've seen also other pros play on that high of a ping, and it doesn't really bother them after they get used to it.
Yeah.
The delay.
Yeah.
I mean, if Australians can play on it.
There's just some things you can't do. For example, like fade a shatter, or like you have to predict it. It sometimes works, but most of the time it doesn't.
Yeah, and you can't take widow fights, for example, when you are doing hit scam 1v1s and stuff like that. But it is something that you can get used to. So, Tom, what was the question again?
His second question was, how do you know if you want your team to play fast or slow? And then we got into a bit farther down, just neutral, like just the play style in general in solo queue as a mid-masters main tank.
Okay, let's get back to that in the end of the stream. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a sideline.
Okay. I figured it might have been a sideliner question.
Yeah. Speed of the team and play style in solo queue. So we don't diverge too much from the topic at hand. Cool. Anybody question to the decision-making process or how it should be done? Anything like that? Like, everything that I'm talking about, these are basic. But we talk about basic stuff because usually we don't think about them, we just do them. And when you start understanding, you might figure out that you have not been doing any part of it right. No questions. Okay. So let's go into how to train decision making. Now, I think, and it's just one way of thinking, and I know that it's hard for some of you who are more like less formal in the ways of thinking. Like, for example, I am a computer scientist. I know that my thinking, the basic form that I am thinking is really formal. So when I visualize things, I visualize them in systems. Whereas my girlfriend, for example, is an artist who actually works in IT, but she can really use her way of thinking differently in a way that's really hard for me. So there are different ways of thinking and different ways of making decisions. My way is more linear, generally, whereas people who love to see a system in a whole, they make decisions a little bit differently. So try to make sure that everything that is being set here, that you can make sure that you use it in your own way. So you shouldn't try to reform your way of thinking or anything like that. But decision making, how to train it is try to figure out the way you are thinking. Try to figure out how you make these decisions. Are you like me? Are you doing this step by step? Or do you build it like you build a Lego? You are building parts of it in the same time, on the same level, or anything else. Because understanding how you actually make decisions, and this really needs you to sit down and think about the thinking. So it's the thinking meta that we are getting into. But it helps because it helps you to understand yourself. It helps you to understand how you and why you act in games like how you do. Decision making can also be trained by mimicry, by learning by example. And as I mentioned in the previous example, you don't want to copy. You want to understand what's going on and you want to apply it on your own level. So when you are watching pro players, for example, you should stop the videos, like stop the video that we had as the example right where you where the player was going out of the window, and try to figure out what you would do in this situation. And in your own words, it will be easier because you know the way of your thinking, but then you can compare your way of thinking to the player's way of thinking. And as we seen in this example, it was kind of, as we identified it, it was kind of a bad decision, feeding a high probability of dying because of the lack of information. But this can happen if you learn by example. So if this does happen when you are watching any kind of video or streamers or a teacher, that what I recommend is to try to identify the part which was common and try to identify the part where it diverged, the way of thinking, way of your thinking and way of the thinking that you think you identified in a high-level player, and compare where it diverges. And if you find a point where it went wrong, you can then start doing your fixes. You can start integrating fixes in the
Hey Falco, can you mute your mic, please? We're getting a lot of reverb.
Yeah, you're echoing a bit.
Okay. Cool. So that's how you can train. So formalize the decisions, make sure that you understand the process that you are doing, learn by example. There's also one thing that you can compare the ground truth or golden standard. So stop the game, make the decision for yourself before you see what's going to happen, and then compare the result of your thinking to the actual situation that was played in the game, and try to figure out, like, this is the backward process from what I was explaining, the reverse engineering of the decision making, that you are comparing what you decided from assessing the situation to that of that higher level player, and then you can start making adjustments. Making adjustments shouldn't be radical, like you shouldn't try to erase your system and redo it, but try to adjust it. Like if you figure out that you made a decision here, like in this example, I am the Genji, I made this decision and this was bad because of the lack of information, then start to tune your system in a way that you rely a little bit more on information and make constraints for yourself. Like if I don't see at least 4 or 5 players in the enemy team, then I don't get aggressive, and then it can start to be integrated in your gameplay if you do this. And staying with the question of you, Town, this is again the same kind of thing. It's really niche. You don't want to do it every time, but it can really help in your decision-making process.
Okay, so keeping it as like a weekly kind of routine then?
Kind of like that, yeah. What also helps, if you, like, I did this a lot. I went to flowchart drawer sites where you can just grab a paint or a pen and paper and start to really visualize the things that you are doing. Like, I have this kind of information. I see all the enemy players. Now, I know, what's the first thing that I do? I prioritize a target. Then I think about check my abilities. And if I have this written down, one thing I can really objectively check what is going on. So instead of going with my own personal bias, the defense of my ego, which is happening when I'm reviewing myself, I just want to, like, there's a lot of situations where you try to stay objective, but because you are making the review on the fly, you are relying more on bias and adjusting the you are not as harsh with yourself as you would be when it's written down and you can double check yourself. So write it down, you can double check yourself, and it also gives you the ability to check it in a longer time. So you can come back 1 week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, and you can compare your previous decision-making process with the one that you have right now, and it can make all the difference to see that, all right, I have improved a lot because now I'm doing this and this and this instead of this and this and this, and I am already dying a lot less or getting more kills or stuff like that. Questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Anyone? Okay. So getting to the last part, which is the follow-up. Now, following it up is, fortunately, it's really just the ability to follow up. The follow-up is the ability to act it out. So we have the information. We can now use our situational awareness to figure out what's going on, predict what's going to happen, and using all that, we can formulate an optimal decision in that situation and then follow it up. And following it up is important to talk about because it's not as simple as just putting myself out there and doing it. Generally, it's easy to make the decision and it's hard to execute. And it's hard because the game itself is, a lot of things are happening to us and it puts pressure on us. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is that while you might be making the right decision, there are a lot of situations where you are not going to be able to follow it up because you lack the timing, you mess up the timing, you don't have the mechanical ability to pull this off, or you miscalculated something and you made a bad decision in the previous process. And as I was explaining, if some part of the process goes haywire, it generally collapses and you have to start kinda again from a previous part. So the ability to act it out is really dependent on your experience and on your skill, and I can't give you a silver bullet. There is no holy grail here. While we can think a lot about every part of the system that was mentioned previously, pulling it up needs you to train, and needs you to train deliberately and like without any kind of without any kind of thing that you would allow yourself to do when you are just thinking about things. It's really as simple as going into the training, not the training range, but in custom mods probably, or a free-for-all, or a comp game where you are really paying attention to one single aspect of your game. I should be able to land grapple headshots with Widowmaker, and I do that 1,000 times to be able to do that. Training, the follow-up thing, is really just about that. Identifying what you need to train is what you can tell is that you made a decision when you are doing a VOD review or someone is reviewing you. You made a decision, you were unable to follow it up, and if you really objectively see that you are missing your shots, you are not landing your abilities, you are in a bad spot, then it's going to generally be about your inability to execute on a level that you would imagine yourself to be able to execute. So what you can do is, when you fail right away on the spot in the game, you are dead. You are going to spend 10 seconds dying and then a few extra getting back to the team. So what I recommend is immediately call back the kind of decision what you made, and this is why it's important and advisable to understand your decision-making process, because then you can recall it more quickly, and check what was the thing that you relied on in terms of information, which part of the situational awareness that you have you try to rely on, and then what was the actual decision, and identify what part was that you couldn't do. And probably this is the hardest, I know that, but if you are failing, that's a good learning experience. If you had success, even if you died in some situations, you can have the success because you achieved your goal and help your team to get the objective and stuff like that. Reinforce yourself. That's really important, because during the VOD review process, we are generally harsh to, like, on the grand scale of things, we are generally harsh and we are only looking at the negatives. But if you see a strong play, make sure that you pat yourself on the back and you praise yourself a little bit, because that helps. That helps to build your skills, but be critical. So make sure that you are not rewarding yourself too much on small and tiny things. That's about the follow-up, and that's kind of the end of what I was trying to talk about, and it's now question and example time. So now if you have questions regarding the topic, make sure to ask them, and we can go over about 2 or 3 team fights that we can analyze parts of, if you have the replay codes that I can load in. So first of all, any questions?
Nope.
It all seems logical to me. I'm not a computer scientist or anything like you, but it all seems logical to me.
Okay. Hopefully, like, trying to figure out what to do in a workshop setting, trying to figure out how to do it is the hardest part of it, is to make it actionable, because I can talk in lengths about these topics, big brain time, but actually applying it to our games is hard. This is why I included the how to do parts. So I hope that they are indeed actionable, they are indeed something that you can do in your next games. I feel like thinking about ourselves is not something that we do generally, like not in this depth, but from my own experience as a teacher, I know that these help to establish a really solid foundation for our thinking. And as I said right in the beginning, these skills are applicable not just to Overwatch, but to other games as well, and generally to life skills. So all the better. Now, any questions? Any replay codes that you want me to, or us in the workshop to go over?
Come on, Baggins, cough up the goods. I know you have them.
I mean, I can give you one. It's preloaded in my clipboard, but I mean, I haven't looked at it myself, so I don't know. This is my last game I played last night.
That's okay. Just give it to us now. Sacrifice it to the almighty Doho God.
If you are interested in that, we had the example with the YouTube video, so I'm okay if we are not doing the hands-on things. Anybody has any questions with how to really apply the things that we have been talking about, or any concerns with it? People here, come on, talk.
No, I don't have anything, but
I mean, it all again. I'm
Sean, I know you're here, and I know you have a microphone, and you should probably talk.
I mean, it makes sense to me. Everything's been making sense, so I don't know. I don't have any like good clips on me.
Okay, we have questions in chat. The two sorts of thinking that I mentioned is linear and big picture. Yeah. So examples of those, please, in the game. So the linear thinking kind of example is what I was describing here. Just going to go ahead and where was it? Nope. Yeah, so this kind of thing applies kind of here as well. So not just the awareness part, but the linear style of thinking allows you to understand what's going on step by step. So if you are a critical thinker, if you are identify paths that are getting executed, or pipelines, thinking pipelines and systems, usually you want to go with a linear way. And in an in-game example, this is what I was explaining with the Genji, that I'm going through the window to scout what the enemies have. It's a short goal that I have. It's a kind of measurable, short, achievable thing that I was talking about. I'm going to the window, I'm seeing what the enemies have. If there is an opening, I'm going in, I'm going to use the ability, and so on and so on. The big picture thinking is actually harder for me to explain. Any big picture thinker here in the workshop with a different kind of interpretation of how you think? I can try, but I'm not sure if it's going to be as genuine. No? No help here. Come on. Okay, so the big picture thinking is more about, not just about what I want to do, but what is happening in the situation that I'm actually in. So I start to figure out the situation. This situation is the first team fight, so we don't have access to the ults yet. That means that I can be kind of free to do what I want to, because I don't have to pay attention to getting wrecked by a DPS ult really quickly. Then going down the next layer, I am getting information about the enemy team. Do I see all of them? Then I can start formulating a plan, which which basically drills down to the same thing that I'm going to make the decision in the end that I'm going to go in and attack the backline. But instead of doing it from my own point of view, I try to visualize everything that is happening and drill it down to my own level. Kind of that's the difference. Hopefully that answers the question. Anything else?
Dandy wants more replay examples.
Okay, we can do that.
I have a code in general chat if you would like to use that. We can even look at just someone else on the team. We don't have to look at me if she's wanting DPS or something.
Okay.
I mean, I believe 75% of all Overwatch players would like to watch DPS players.
That's about how that works.
Okay, so let's use this code. And while I'm setting up,
email leak up. Good thing it was too pixelated.
What?
When
the email. Yeah.
I can email you now.
Oh no.
Victory.
Oh no. Okay, play.
Plug gum.
What profile is that? I have not seen that.
Profile.
The image she uses. I haven't
the
seen
frog.
That one. The frog.
It's not in Overwatch. It's only in the Peanut client. Okay, so plays. You can see my stats now. Wish I had more time to play, but I'm just a diamond.
Just a diamond. Oh no. Thanks, alien. Just a diamond.
Holy shit, I'm Alien's Elo Pug.
That's
Hi,
right.
everyone.
Hello. Okay, so it's laggy as hell. I have to reconfig the OBS to just show the game. How do I do that? This way? Probably. And you are not going to be able to see this on Discord, I think. Okay, in the game. Actually, I can make it to Discord as well if I'm closing this. You can kind of see it, right?
Yeah, we can see it through your OBS window right now, so we're good.
Okay, so let's pick one player. Who are we spectating here? Dragons, okay? Okay, so defense. And let's get to not the first team fight. Let's get to somewhere. Enemies are on you and push back. Did they win the first one?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, let's see the next one. So, sticking with the system, let's look at. So we are not going to utilize the information part because that's the general understanding of the game and it would be too much to talk about, but let's use the situational awareness. What is going on? And we have the help of the UI, so we can identify what's going on. But you lose the first team fight, so that tells you that what?
Their ult economy is up.
That's right.
Or theoretically should be up.
That's right. Depending, of course, on the amount of damage you were able to do and the amount of deaths that they suffered. But yes, so going into a situation like this, I am thinking about the general things that are going on, how much resources the enemies have, what should I expect, what ults were used. So probably the Moira ult was just used in the previous team fight, so I don't have to think about that, but all the others should be up. Now, the easiest thing that you can do as a player is to figure out what's going on in the mirror slot. So when you're playing the main tank, it's generally recommended to try to pay attention to what the other main tank has and what they do. So tracking the fire strikes, for example, in the enemy from the enemy lane helps you to figure out if they are going to have the shatter faster or slower. And then you can relay that information to your team. Okay, so getting into the situation, going in the VOD review, we assess the situation. They have a better ult economy. What else can we see here? And anybody feel free to pitch in. Regarding myself as the Rain, regarding the my environment, regarding the enemies, regarding the team, and regarding the meta of the game. Anything else that we can use?
At this point, I'm personally thinking what we can use against them rather than what they use against us. At least it's first what we can use against them, and then after that, it's usually what they have to counter what I'm possibly thinking of us to use. Because if we figure out what we want to do, we have to then figure out what they can delete it with.
Yeah. So what is, regarding your job, we have some good comments from Destro Gamer on the YouTube. Regarding your job, what should you pay attention to?
I'm looking for Ryan for a shatter because I've got mine. I know he's got his. I'm watching out for telegraphing of like Zarya. She doesn't have it yet, but you know I can't be too sure because she can get it pretty quickly. Waiting for the nano blade, maybe solo shatter if the opportunity presents itself.
Okay.
Maybe try and fake that I don't have mine by continuing to use Fire Strike. Trying to swing on them.
Okay. In this situation, if you remember it, do you know where your team is right now?
I just left my Mei on left side, but she started walking with me, or I thought she did. Apparently they're going top. I'm pretty confident my Zarya is with me. Because that's usually where Zarya goes. And Dylan, who's my teammate, DD Gaming, I know is going to usually have me in his sights. And then I'm hoping the Ana has me in sightlines.
Okay. Yeah. So what's the plan here? What do you try to achieve in the next fight?
Next fight...
Or just try to, using the... So we kind of assess the situation. It's easier with the replay. Probably you are not going to be able to recall all this while you are going into the game, but what are the goals here? So what's the next step right from here? What are you going to do? Try to formulate the decisions.
I'm just going to try and close a little bit of a gap so they can't get as much cart progress as if I were to stay further back, but not going to a position that's going to keep me completely separated from the team so that I can stay up there safe. So I'm probably thinking up to hay bales on either the left or the right side out there and just kind of going to go hold that ground.
Okay. What
I might be looking for a shatter. I can't remember if at this point I was.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, let's see how you execute. Like, there wasn't anything that is hard to pull off. Maybe the shatter, because they have intact shields and stuff like that, so it might be hard. Let me stop it here. So what can we see from this? It was just about 20 seconds-ish. So do you feel like you could do something differently regarding the...
Well, their Rhine was behind me, so the only shield they have is Zarya Bubble, and I don't remember if she already used it, but if I can force her to use it, they have no shield to block me, so I can just shatter them, and then we just deal with the Rhine while they're all on the ground. Or, since, did he charge in? He charged in after he got Nano, so... Yeah. So that's just, I could have just shattered instead of trying to pin him behind.
Yeah, there was a small window of opportunity where you could have diverged from the plan. So playing reactively is hard, making the split-second decision. But if you have established these kind of decision-making paths and you know them, you see the Reinhardt coming in, and your immediate response is, if you have the shatter, you can just shatter the whole enemy team. That is, and this is why it's really hard, it's always situational if you have your team to follow it up, because you of course don't want to waste shatter just to delay the enemies for a few seconds in a situation like this. Okay. Yeah. The important thing here is we were able to identify a possible like diverging into a different course of action, which helps you to build experience, like visualize and execute. That's what Zarya says. It really helps to think about these even during a VOD review process, because that's not exactly the experience that you can gain from doing, but it's like kinda like that, 70% of that, imagining what could have been done differently. Because then if you get into a situation next time where the enemy Rein is charging in and leaves the whole enemy backline open, you might be able to recall that it's a better opportunity to just shatter them. Do things like this. Hopefully that makes sense.
I mean, there's even the possibility of just, since he charged in, I just shatter him instead.
That's right. You can do
and
that.
And we might be able to get an anti-nade off of him, but he charged our Ana, so the likelihood of him dying is smaller, so the better option might be me just going into... They're kind of like doing a Winston thing where you trade places of the backline. At least in this situation, you don't usually want to do that as Ryan, but...
Yeah, you probably could have shattered the Rein, because the following up on him might have been easier than on the backline. They are kind of far away and out of the sights. So that's true. Okay, just one tiny 20-second part. We have been able to assess what we have about the situation. We have been able to figure out the kinds of decisions that were being made, and which the things, like, you can also pay attention to the things that you are not paying attention to. So, like, for example, if I make a decision, then it turns out that I really missed the whole point of the fight. It can happen. I failed to notice that the Zarya is being too aggressive and she wants to grab us, or that the Rein is setting up for a shatter. Then that means that my decision-making process has its faults, that I am not able to identify all the important things in the situation. And the things that I was describing, how you can train this, can help understanding those as well. Anybody else with any kind of questions? There's a question on the chat. Rein can't look behind 95% of the time. How would one know who is supporting him? Like, my Ana could be flanking and I wouldn't know.
You can look behind. They give you that option with Overwatch now, like with holding down left mouse button or whichever. I don't know. I just know what button to press when I'm in game, but you can turn around and you don't have to like sit there and analyze what's behind you. You just need to do a quick look around. I sometimes do that. I don't use as much as a Ryan probably should, but you can see who's behind you. If you want to make a play and you want to know where your team's at, you just do a quick turnaround. You should be able to see all the blue behind you and then know where they're at.
That's
yeah,
right.
I believe it is left click, but you get free look when you do that. So
You can do that.
You can get a 360 view on the entire battlefield.
Yeah. So he says that I know about left and right button, but you can't do that every single time during fights. That's right. So you can use this for setup. During the fight, you can't really, like, you have to do your job. You have to be there and hammer away, land your fire strikes and stuff like that. So preferably in a situation like this, you can make sure that the team is behind you, and then you have the line of sight and you don't go too deep, and you don't allow the enemies to cut you away from the support, so you are not split or anything like that. It's really just assessing the current situation and then okay, sorry about that. Not sure if I can turn that off.
You're hiding chat with your face cam.
Oh, nice. Yep, so that's what you get when you allow general chat in during the replay.
You can just do /hide chat if you want.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, what I was trying to explain is not only you can look around, but during the actual fight, when you really want to pay attention, if you still have the line of sight, you can see, probably when you are in deep of the enemy team, you can see the scan lines of Diana shooting around you. You can listen to the sound effects of your healers if you can do that, and you can also, like, I should controls here. Come on. So not only you can hear and see what's going on, but you see that looking at your HP, you are getting the healing. The yellow crosses are floating on the screen as well. So that helps you to tell if you are still in the line of sight of your supports, and you can tell if you are in too deep or not. So that's
You
it.
can also just use voice chat just to confirm with your team. I know a lot of
That's
people
right.
don't like voice chat, but it's like that's the quickest and easiest way to really know for certain.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. You can try to rely on the basic knowledge of your team, that they are going to be behind you and stuff like that. But yeah, voice chat helps you to coordinate. Okay, we had some sideline questions. Voice chat is banned in the country. Okay, is that in the, where is it banned? Israel? Something like that? I know that in that region it's hard to get to the voice chat.
Well, at that point, it might just be paying attention to text chat, because there's actually a whole lot that you can do with that text chat.
Yeah.
It's limited, but you can do a lot with it. And it's as close of an equivalent as you can get, I guess, without a full 6-stack in Discord.
Yeah, the thing is that players on different levels pay attention to these things differently. Like in a Masters game, for example, you can try to rely on the chat wheel to group up, for example, but not so much in a silver game generally.
No.
Yeah. Okay, so sideline questions, some of them here. There was one about the speed of your teammates. Let me try to check that. Tom, do you see that somewhere? You were looking at a chat.
Did I see what?
There was this. I have it here. Speed of the teammates.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that was Destro's earlier question.
What was the
Destro?
question?
It was basically he's asking like, how do you determine how you need to be pacing yourself in the game? Like when you're getting there with a solo queue type environment, do you need to be a fast rushy comp, or do you need to be a slow paced reserve comp, depending on how your teammates are? How do you read that? How do you figure that part out within like the few minutes that you have? And if you don't have voice comms, I mean, apparently it's difficult. So hard enough life,
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So using the lexical knowledge of the game and making sure that you scout ahead, you should have a good general idea about what the enemies are going to throw at you and what you can do against them. So if you see a death ball comp with Rain Zarya, you are sure to know that they are not going to be able to jump over your front line and access the back line easily. Whereas if they play dive, that means that they can do just that. So deciding how aggressive and how passive do you want to play really depends on the general setup of your team and of that of the enemy team, and also stuff like where you are at exactly, where you are setting up. Do you have a control of the high ground? Because if you do, you have a natural advantage over the enemy team, and you probably don't want to give that up. You don't want to go into the enemy team. But for example, in some situations, you can play a defensive dive and be really aggressive and access the backline, abusing the fact that the enemies are really slow, and kill them, do a hit and run. So when deciding about this, like when you are trying to dictate the tempo of the game, and it's generally in a solo queue environment, it's the job of the main tank to decide how aggressive they want to be if they have a good off tank to play with and good supports. Because the DPS just need the space, and they are just going to follow up most of the time. But the tank needs to decide if you want to be really aggressive, if you can abuse a weakness in the enemy team. And this really relies on the info, the knowledge, and relies on the situational awareness. Like one of the easiest parts of the game where you can attack an enemy team is any kind of situation where they are rotating. So let's see an example in the game here. I'm sure that we can find something. So getting back here, you can tear a team apart when they have already been doing something and they have to change their plans. So for example, let's see the enemy team coming in to the point, maybe a little bit back more and more. Okay, so around here there's going to be some brawling in the gate, and then they decide. So this, for example, is not a good chance for you to do anything meaningful with any comp. If you would to play dive, you could try to dive the Ana there, but that's risky. The enemy team is staying together, so this is not a good situation for anybody to try to abuse what the enemy team does. Any situation, like for example, this might have been a better one. They start to split up. So let's say that you are running a dive comp. This might just be the situation where you want to be aggressive and you want to dive the Hanzo on the top, for example, if you see that he went top, or dive the backline because the front line is pushing in. So deciding on the playstyle, deciding on the tempo is really just finding these tiny windows of opportunities to go in and to abuse some kind of weakness in the enemy team. You also can have a general playstyle, like some rank players like to play aggressively with a lot of kamikaze charges, and they can pull that off because they are so aggressive that they intimidate the enemy team. And then some play really passively, landing juicy fire strikes and farming the ult quicker than the enemies. So usually players have a general playstyle, but if you are able to identify how to dictate the tempo of the game and capitalize on the mistake that the enemies are making, that's how you can dictate the tempo of the game. Okay, Dandy has questions. Would social parameters come into winning and losing fights as well? For example, distractions in the comms if players choose to use them. I've had players often break down comms and argue amongst themselves. I assume drawing their focus from the game and throwing. Would there be anything I could do to help shore up these weak links? And or is that relevant to this conversation? Is this the topic purely focused on gameplay? Okay, so yeah, drawing attention can actually be used as a tool of psychological warfare against the enemy team too. It is nasty, but in some situations when you are rolling one single enemy in the enemy team and you start calling out them, it can be used against the team, because first the player is going to feel bad. The teammates can have a scapegoat to blame for their own loss in team fights and stuff like that, and it can create turmoil in the team, making it hard for them to focus, making it like social aspects in a team game. Even if there is minimal communication, people are sure to express their negative feelings in this game and in most of the games that are available right now in comp. So when you're in a team setting, it's really important to keep the spirits up, and you can actually win games and carry just by making sure that the spirit is up and everybody is in a good mood, because then players tend to perform better. Generally, you have to do a certain job in this game, and if you are under a lot of stress and then somebody comes in and starts harassing you, either from your team or that of the enemy team, you start feeling bad, on top of being stressed out because you might have a bad day, and then you start to feel more stressed because you were called out, and then the teammates of yours are going to start feel stressed because they have a weak link in the team, and it just snowballs and escalates into a lost game. So the social aspects are important in winning and losing team fights. The spirit of the team is important, and if you can keep that on a good term, that can help in a lot of situations. Probably the best thing that you can do if you are active on either the chat or the voice chat is to try to stop feeding the trolls in the enemy team or your team, and try to be focused on the game, and try to like shove your teammates back to focusing on the game instead of fighting amongst themselves. It's not easy to do, and in most of the situations you can't really salvage. But if somebody is like a tool that I use, that even if the general thing that is going on is toxicity in a certain game, if someone does anything well, I call them out and I reassure them that this was a nice play. Like, I'm playing an off tank and I stay alive, and I tell the supports that the healing was great. And I generally just do that because people feel nice about themselves and they start performing better. So there is indeed a social aspect to any of this.
Also, calling someone out can just make them say, you know what? If that's your attitude,
That's right.
then I'll just make sure that what you're saying is actually true, rather than you just trying to pass blame, which will really damage your games.
Yeah, that's right. Any other questions? If not, then I think I'm just going to conclude the session. We have been in for 2 hours now. Yeah, no questions?
No.
I'm good.
No. Okay, nice. I was really happy to have you here. I think we just broke our record for the number of viewers and participants in the workshop. So I'm really thankful to see that we are building this up nicely. And we can hear something from you.
Sorry.
Grinding. Okay.
Stop playing your Beyblades.
So thank you for being here. I hope that it was useful. I tried to make it something that you can integrate in your games, but if you have any kind of trouble, either with the understanding or the execution of it, or implementing these things that we have been talking about in your game, then make sure to hit me up either in the general talk, we can talk about it. You can generally DM me, or if you have coaching questions, make sure that you go to the Dojo coaching channel on our Discord. Link should be in the description, I hope so. Really was happy to have this session, and see you guys in the next one.